Was Dmitry Bivol robbed against Artur Beterbiev? No, we have to stop calling close fights robberies. It was a close fight. Now, before you goblins get in the comments and be like, no, he wasn't robbed. No, I'm agreeing with you, you idiot. I'm agreeing with you. So please, miss me with that. Actually watch the video instead of just reading the clickbaity thing that's in front of you. Yes, Artur Beterbiev, he won the fight. It was a close fight. It could have gone either way. So no, Dmitry Bivol was not robbed. It's one of those things, every time there's a decision that's close, every time there's something that people like, oh, I'm really invested in this fight. I'm really invested in Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather. Manny Pacquiao was robbed. No, dude. No. It was a close fight. A robbery would be something like if Artur Beterbiev went in there and battered up Dmitry Bivol like he does so many other people, and there's like, yeah, well, actually, those knockdowns don't count, so we're going with Dmitry Bivol in this fight, even though he won 2 rounds out of 12. That's a robbery. So before we get into this episode, please check out my Substack, fightlibrary.substack.com. $5 a month, you get exclusive articles about MMA and boxing. I'm trying to get some wrestling in there too, so if you're a combat sports fan and you want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. A robbery is not something that's, oh, this is super close. This may be one way or the other. And by the end of the 12th round, that's what I felt. I felt like this fight could have gone one way to Artur Beterbiev because I'm like, hey, he had a lot of good moments in this fight. He really did land the more significant shots, as fewer as they were. And I also saw Dmitry Bivol, who was on his back foot a lot of the time. And you got to remember, if you're on your back foot, boxing judges don't like that at all. They don't like a fighter going backwards. Even though I felt like Dmitry Bivol won, I'm not going to sit here and call it a robbery. That's stupid. It was a close fight. It was a deserving fight. I'm happy to see Artur Beterbiev get the undisputed title. And one day, who knows? Dmitry Bivol might be undisputed. They might rematch, which we'll talk about later. There's other options out there for him. He could rematch Canelo if Canelo decided, hey, now's the time to get you now that you're, coming off of a loss, which would be weird. There's David Benavidez, David Morrell. There's lots of fights out there for him. He can go up to, cruiserweight if he wanted to. He was huge in there. And remember, guys, Artur Beterbiev is just jacked to the gills, man. He has muscles in places I didn't know had muscles. May have got him implanted. Who knows? Implanted, you know what I mean? No, I'm kidding. Jokes, guys. But yeah, it's time to stop calling these types of fights robberies. They're close fights. They're not robberies. That's like when people way back, Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. Oh, Fury was robbed. I didn't feel that. And a lot of people didn't feel that. A robbery is when a fight is like unanimously agreed that so-and-so won this fight. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. And Conceição and O'Shaquie Foster recently, I felt like that was a robbery, but it's the same situation here. He was going backwards. The judges don't like seeing that. And Beterbiev landed a lot of great shots. You have to give him credit there. So yeah, great fight. I thought it was a really fun fight. Enough talking about this whole robbery thing. It's really kind of pointless. He was handed the win. Athletic commissions do not turn this stuff over. So, nah, we're out on that. Artur Beterbiev fought a fantastic fight. Now, Dmitry Bivol is not an easy fighter to beat. We know he is going to be very fundamental when he fights. And considering that Artur Beterbiev has never gone the distance, he's knocked all 20 of his opponents out before this fight, I find it highly impressive that he not only won this fight and kept it close enough to where there's an argument that he won this fight if you're a Bivol believer like I am, but he also won the last rounds, and that's part of what won him this fight. Now, keep that in mind. The last thought in these judges' heads is, oh, look at these last 2 rounds. Dmitry Bivol did not win the last 2 rounds. Artur Beterbiev was the man. He didn't go too crazy. He didn't hit too hard. He went and punched just enough to where it mattered. He knew Dmitry Bivol wasn't going to hit him hard because Dmitry Bivol is not a big hitter by any stretch of the imagination. He's not a big hitter. So what he discovered is, hey, I'm not worried about his power. I can come forward and I can put him on the back foot. And I know a lot of judges don't like seeing fighters on the back foot. So not only did he not just go berserk mode, he also was ready for 12 rounds. He's the most humble guy. He's like, I don't think I'm a good boxer. Bro, what? Undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world does not think he's a good boxer. What does that even mean? And I know what he's getting at. Like, he always feels like he needs to improve. I get that, just coming from just deep in my soul of everything I do. I'm like, hey, can I be better? Can I be better? Can I be better? Artur Beterbiev feels that. At 40 years old, mind you, he is the most accomplished he can be in boxing. He is a undisputed champion. You know, he could go up to a cruiser and be undisputed, sure. He can fight David Benavidez. He can fight, Canelo, whoever. But he will always be first introduced. He won't ever be introduced as, hey, this is the guy that beat Canelo. Hey, this is the guy that beat Beterbiev. Beat Dmitry Bivol. This is the guy that beat... No, hey, this is the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. What he did against Dmitry Bivol, as great of a fighter as Bivol is. Again, I thought Bivol won the fight, but I have no qualms with giving it to Artur Beterbiev because of how Beterbiev fought. He constantly had Dmitry Bivol scared out of his mind. And I say scared, I don't mean that isn't like, oh, please don't hit me. No. Not like when Deontay Wilder fights somebody. That's a different kind of scare. He had Dmitry Bivol on the back foot a lot of the fight. Most of the fight, actually, Dmitry Bivol was on the back foot, backing up. That's the same reason Canelo beat Triple G, because he kept Triple G on the back foot. It's the reason Canelo got the draw in the first fight, because he kept Triple G on the back foot. This was a magnificent performance. He cut the ring off perfectly. Perfectly. He was in there, and every time Dmitry Bivol, who would want to move laterally, that's the right move, Artur Beterbiev meeting him where he's going to go. Instead of following him around. It was just magnificent. I'm not mad at all about Artur Beterbiev being the undisputed champion, the fourth ranked pound for pound. So I've got it: Usyk, Inoue, Crawford, Beterbiev. That's my top four now. There's no other way to put it, though. He's great. He's great, and he will always be great. Hall of Famer now. Hall of Famer. Now, if he goes up, and we're going to talk about that later. I'm jumping ahead of myself, guys. I got to go through the slides. Dmitry Bivol's boxing prowess is what we got to talk about before we talk about greener pastures or rematches, right? Bivol fought well. Keep in mind Artur Beterbiev's reputation going into this fight. Keep in mind how much of a boogeyman he was. There's a reason Canelo didn't go after the 3 belts against Beterbiev, who had 3 of the major belts, and he went after Dmitry Bivol at 4. He hits like a freight train. Everybody crumbles before him and his power. But not Dmitry Bivol. No, Dmitry Bivol said, I've got the skills for this. And he showed us he's great. He exceeded a lot of the expectations of some of the more Beterbiev fans. Like, it was a tougher fight than they thought. Everybody's used to Beterbiev terminate people. It was a lot closer than a lot of people thought. Artur Beterbiev had a very good boxer in there with him. And do not take that away from Dmitry Bivol. Bivol's counters were fantastic. He was drawing out strikes. He disincentivized the body shots after the first couple rounds. They came back at the end, sure, but he disincentivized it by having quick hands, good footwork, and coming up over the top, hurting Beterbiev at one point in time. Dmitry Bivol is no slouch, and we're not going to listen to this whole narrative of that, if that even comes up, because it will come up. You know how toxic and cancerous these fans are. But yeah, there was several moments in this fight to where he's in the pocket landing 3, 4, 5 punch combinations. What? You're extending combinations against the heaviest hitter in the division? You wild, bro. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. and he did it. He was not scared to do it. He landed several shots. He landed several flurries that were absolutely magnificent. He didn't let the great footwork that we were just talking about of Artur Beterbiev bother him. He didn't let none of that get to him. No, he said, I've got my game plan, and it's not going to be foolproof because this is a quality opponent across the ring from me. This is a quality opponent, and it was. And we saw it was. We saw just how good Artur Beterbiev could be, and we saw how good Dmitry Bivol can be. He can be undisputed champion one day. He really can. I think he's got the skills and the talent. You know, I understand the size disparity against somebody like Canelo. But like this fight showed us, like, yeah, he's not scared of big hitters at all. He's got a good chin. He ate some hard punches. He did a good job of blocking a lot of the punches too. If you see, there's a picture floating around. His right hand is, or his left hand, is swole up from that right there. And you know what that is? That's Artur Beterbiev hitting his hand over and over again with his big right hand. Dmitry Bivol is one of the best in the world. Should still be on the pound for pound list if we're worried about that sort of thing. Fantastic performance. Absolutely great. So, are we rematching? Or are we moving on for greener pastures for Artur Beterbiev? I want the rematch. And you can always bet on the boxer in the rematch. So, Dmitry Bivol should win the rematch, right? There's no rematch clause for this. So, if Beterbiev says, kick rocks, I'm going on to the next thing, I'm moving up and fighting at heavyweight, he can do so. There's a reason behind that, so hold that heavyweight thought in your head. Beterbiev can fight Dmitry Bivol. He's got some other really good fights for him, though. Namely, David Benavidez and David Morrell. If Morrell beats Benavidez, I think Benavidez wins. Think about the type of pressure Benavidez brings to a fight. Now, his power might be lacking at light heavyweight as opposed to super middleweight at 168. But one thing we know about David Benavidez is he's going to come forward. He's going to bring the volume, and he has really heavy hands. So does Artur Beterbiev, and he brings a lot of volume and pace when he's not fighting Dmitry Bivol. It's true. It's true. Believe me, I promise you it's true. That's a fight, guys. That is a fight. That is just as good of a fight as Dmitry Bivol versus Artur Beterbiev 2. And the reason I say it's just as good is because it's fresh. It's a tough challenge. His second straight tough challenge. And he could face Morrell. Canelo could get a wild hair and say, I'm going to fight up at light heavyweight. I want the undisputed, which would be horrible. He would just batter Canelo around. Canelo's scared of Kovalev's ancient power, and that's a whole nother conversation, but he could go up to heavyweight. And the reason I say heavyweight is Alexander Usyk. The two have a history. They fought in the Olympic trials, or they fought in amateur. I'll say that. Very close fight. Very fun fight. But now, the headgear's off. Everything's on the line. Undisputed versus undisputed. We did that with Canelo versus Charlo. But this is a real one. Let's go to cruiserweight. Usyk said he might not be done with cruiserweight. One last hurrah. Retirement fight for both of them. At the top of their division. Meeting in the middle. No belt on the line. It doesn't have to be on the line. It's at cruiserweight. Just fantastic. Great. Awesome. I just couldn't contain myself. It was such a good fight. Now this is gonna sound crazy, but maybe, just maybe, Dmitry Bivol could take a note out of Shakur Stevenson's book with his defensive masterclass style. Yes, I know. It's a film study though about Shakur Stevenson versus Artem Hartunian, and how and why Shakur Stevenson is so hard to hit.